It's fascinating how people who are failed politicians are desperate for headlines. And today it's about, it's not about an epiphany, it's about loyalty. And somebody who demanded loyalty when she was in the cabinet and who looked to lead the Conservative Party has today demonstrated that she has no loyalty to her erstwhile colleagues, and she just betrays the character that I have spent so long sort of poking and identifying as wanting. This is about Suella Braverman, the ever-evolving political labyrinth of this, in which this Tory monster dwells, a figure whose knack for courting controversy is as sharp as her rhetorical daggers, which are now aimed at her own party, like some sort of Taurian minotaur preparing to charge. Once she was a staunch member of the cabinet that helped usher in Brexit under the frost-driven machinations. Braverman now finds herself both judge and jury of that very legacy, and she admits that the Conservative Party mishandled Brexit. Of course it did, leaving the European Union without a plan for growth, and a confession that resonates more as a strategic move than an epiphany of accountability. That plan for growth, yes, Britain ripped its own carpet from under it. And that was partly a result of frost, but partly a result of the willingness of particularly the hardliners to go along with that belligerence. Let's not forget, Braverman was deeply entrenched in the machinery that enabled what she now criticises. Her current lamentation about the 70-year high tax burden and the unchecked woke virus dominating public life feels less like genuine contrition and more like positioning. She speaks as if her hands were tied during her time in power. It's a fascinating feat of political amnesia. She was in charge of the Home Office. That's the organisation in Parliament that is unaccountable, that you cannot contact. Any attempt to contact the Home Office is met with a diversion to one of the various private organisations that manages the advice lines. You cannot speak to the Home Office. You cannot get a message from the Home Office. Now, I've been trying for the last 2 months to get a letter from the Home Office about a very specific issue, and apparently it takes 40 days for the Home Office to reply. That 40 days has elapsed, but there's no attempt, there's no avenue for pursuing it. The advice is to write to that department in the Home Office. I've written, and I get no response. I've written to my MP, and I get no response. And the MP himself, newly elected, doesn't have a telephone number. So the point is, the Home Office, and this is something that happened very much under Suella Braverman, became a law unto itself. It doesn't work. It's an office which is unaccountable, that doesn't do the work that it's committed to do, either in processing asylum applications or in doing anything else. It's delegated and delegated to the point where what does a civil servant in the Home Office actually do? What does a Home Office minister actually do except posture? Except posture and moan about a woke virus dominating public life. Suella Braverman's refusal to rule out a defection to Reform UK, led by Farage's ideological disciples, underscores a broader identity within the Conservatives. Far from merely toying with the idea, her commentary on the need for accommodation between the Tories and Reform UK is a thinly veiled acknowledgement of the existential threat posed by Reform's rising poll numbers. The irony here is palpable. Braverman, a Conservative stalwart since the age of 14, now openly entertains the notion of abandoning the ship that she's spent decades sailing in one particular direction. And her rhetoric about lowering immigration to the tens of thousands and her calls for radical action on sovereignty and patriotism may resonate with disaffected Conservative voters, but these statements ignore her complicity in politics that failed to deliver those very promises. She was part of a government that repeatedly told people what they wanted to hear and cobbled together half-baked policies that exacerbated the issues that she now decries. Her criticism of Lee Anderson's expulsion and the internal fractures within the party further expose her strategy of aligning with the aggrieved right-wing base. It's a precarious game, balancing populist appeals while not entirely burning bridges within her own party. And her condemnation of the Conservative failure to confront political correctness feels like an audition for Reform UK's leadership rather than a genuine blueprint for Conservative renewal. Probably that's what she's trying to do. She's waiting until Farage gets pushed out by the urgency of Elon Musk. And then there's Kemi Badenoch, another Conservative heavyweight who recently acknowledged another Conservative heavyweight who recently acknowledged the failures of the Conservative Party to deal with the mistakes on Brexit. Unlike Braverman, Badenoch frames her criticism as a call for pragmatism and rebuilding trust, admitting that the Conservatives promised the moon and delivered a distinctly unappetizing piecemeal Brexit. And while Braverman leans on ideological purity, Badenoch attempts to present a sobering realism. Their divergence symbolises the rift within conservatism itself, a battle between uncompromising dogma and reluctant self-reflection. Badenoch's refusal to guarantee her allegiance to the Conservative Party by the end of this Parliament is a loaded statement. It invites speculation, it fuels intrigue, but it also raises a larger question. Is her dissatisfaction born out of principle, or is it simply a bid for relevance in a post-Brexit political wilderness once Kemi Badenoch has completely destroyed the Conservatives? In her criticism of Labour, Braverman paints a stark contrast, accusing the government of ineptitude while conveniently ignoring her own party's role in the nation's economic woes. She invokes patriotism and common sense, but offers little in the way of tangible solutions. Her political manoeuvring reeks of optimism, a gamble that may well backfire if Reform UK's ascent continues to fragment the right. Braverman's latest declarations serve as a rallying cry and a lament, a paradox that encapsulates the fractured state of British conservatism. Whether she remains a Conservative or defects to Reform UK, and who cares, frankly, her actions will likely polarise a political landscape already teetering on the edge. Braverman sees herself as a torchbearer of common sense, but in reality she is the embodiment of a party grappling with its own incoherence. Between them, she and Kemi Badenoch will destroy what is left of the Conservative Party.